Hello and welcome to the third and final installment of my diagnosis series, in which I have gone over in the past two videos about the things that I listed in my autism assessment that got me a diagnosis of autism. And in this final version, we're going to take a look at my report from the autism diagnosis process, and I will give a little insight onto my feelings around the process, both before, during, and after. If this is your first time meeting me, my name is Heather. If you're returning, welcome. I am a late diagnosed autistic and ADHD human, and I make videos about my experiences and about autism and ADHD and anything else my little heart desires. Welcome. I appreciate you being here, and I hope that this information is helpful to you. Now, I'm not going to read the diagnosis paperwork to you word for word. Obviously, there is some very personal information in here about my location, things that I do for a living, things of that nature, as well as some kind of spicy background info that we're not quite ready to dive into yet. But it was an assessment done remotely. It was done via video. It was done in the span of 4 total appointments, 3 for the assessment, which were all 1 to 2 hours long, and then the final appointment, which was the diagnosis itself, which was oddly brief after all of that interaction. But it was not an in-person assessment. I have heard that there are various differences in in-person assessments versus virtual assessments, but I was totally comfortable with going the virtual route. As I knew that a diagnosis for me would most likely be a level 1, low support needs, hate that word again, diagnosis, and that there would not be any real accommodations that I would be able to pursue. So my concern wasn't how official is the diagnosis, just that I really needed to know for my own personal well-being, and to answer some questions in my own life. So without further ado, let's take a look at my diagnosis paperwork. So in the first section, there's a little background on me, and as I mentioned, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail with that. I did disclose that I was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder while hospitalized after a suicide attempt at age 17. And that my current psychiatrist saw no symptoms of bipolar disorder or OCD, and that is actually where I received my ADHD diagnosis. I was diagnosed with ADHD before the autism diagnosis, and that was yet another reason that I wanted to pursue the autism diagnosis, and I had to go to a different provider because my psychiatrist was not a qualified diagnostician for autism. The nature of the evaluation, it says it was done remotely and focused on ruling in or out the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. Diagnostic categories outside of autism were assessed only to the degree which they impact the assignment of an autism spectrum diagnosis, which means they did take into account some childhood trauma that I mentioned and some other things like that, and ruled that out as being the reasons why I am the way I am. The signs of autism are separated into 2 categories: social communication and interests and behaviors. So let's start with the social communication. There are 3 domains of social communication functioning that are considered: social emotional reciprocity, nonverbal communication, and relationships. Each of these are discussed below. Social emotional reciprocity refers to one's social approach, the quality of conversation, responses to social overtures, and sharing interest, emotions, and affect. I reported several difficulties with reciprocal conversation, sharing interest, and expressing emotion. Reported having anxiety, and even reported that the evaluation made her nervous. It did quite a bit. She reported that she tried to prepare for the evaluation and will normally rehearse conversations prior to experiencing, but the questions that were not what she expected, so it made her very nervous. It did make me very nervous, and that's something I'll discuss in the second portion of the video. She stated that she always worked in an office and had to present herself to clients, so she is able to communicate with others, but she stated that it is exhausting. Small talk is difficult, and afterwards she may need more time to rest. Heather reported that she can sometimes go too far when discussing whether and communication was more difficult during her high school years. She stated that a high school friend was told to stop hanging out with her by her mother because she was fearful that Heather was hindering her daughter from being popular. That is a true story. She reported not having friend groups during high school and feeling awkward. She stated that during a conversation, she can interject when she feels that she knows something, but will quickly exit the conversation afterwards. And others have told her that she comes across rude when exiting conversations. Yes, I call this a mic drop moment. That means I just jump in, say what I need to say, and then like literally physically leave the room or leave the conversation because I don't know how to follow up. Her brother, which is who had to give insight into me as a person. You have to have someone that can fill out forms and documentation on you when they are considering you for an autism diagnosis. It's not normally based solely on your reporting. It is family, friends, loved ones, things like that that would also give their info. Also reported major differences in social emotional reciprocity. He indicated that Heather seems uncomfortable in social situations. She often isolates, avoids others that are trying to connect emotionally with her, and has difficulty relating to others. Nonverbal communication refers to a person's use of gestures, eye gaze, and body language for communication. Heather reported many differences in nonverbal communication. She reported that eye contact makes her feel uncomfortable. She also reported that others often think she is very angry when she is not all the time. Her brother report was consistent and also reported several differences in the use of gestures. He reported that Heather often uses overly serious facial expressions and often gazes off into space. Yes, I am a space cadet. And I have what I always thought was just RBF, but apparently it is not just resting bitch face, it is autism. Because when I'm thinking, my face does look angry, I guess, because I'm not monitoring what it's doing. So I've got the furrowed brow and I've got the serious expression, and I'm really just thinking. Differences in a person's ability to develop, maintain, and understand relationships is the final social communication category. Heather reported several difficulties with developing, maintaining, and understanding friendships. She reported that she is not good at maintaining or initiating contact with others. She stated she was never good at making friends on her own, and during her younger years, it would have to be arranged by someone else. She reported having one friend who she has limited contact with, no contact in several months. Heather reported meeting her husband at the age of 18, becoming pregnant 1 month after being together, and therefore deciding to marry. Also, true story. Heather's brother report was consistent that he also indicated that Heather struggled with making friends. And I did make it clear that I am able to talk to people and I can be outgoing in social situations, and I can even talk to strangers just fine. It's just the concept of pursuing a friendship. I can have a conversation with anybody about anything, but maintaining a friendship, or I don't know, the unspoken rules of like, how often are you supposed to contact somebody? Are you supposed to hang out with them all the time? Do you go to their house, or do they come to your house, or do you go out and do things together? Or it's just all too much. And really at this point in my life, I don't care anymore. It was a problem when I was younger, and now I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I think that just comes with age, maybe. I have noticed that a lot of older adults with autism have just kind of reached the point in their life where they just don't have that interest in the social aspect of things anymore because it is just too difficult. Interests and behaviors. The other category of autism signs includes different interests and behaviors. This includes unusual or repetitive movements, behaviors, or speech patterns, insistence on particular routines, sameness or ritualized behaviors, interests which are preoccupying focus or intensity, and unusual responses to sensory stimulation. In terms of unusual or repetitive movements, behaviors, or speech patterns, Heather reported several repetitive behaviors. She reported often rubbing and clenching her hands and feet. She reported pacing often and touching her chest or mouth. She reported that she would say the same song or sounds repeatedly, either aloud or in her mind. She reported that she will count in her head repetitively also. Stated that she will rewatch certain movies or certain books over and over for comfort. Her brother's report was consistent, and that he also indicated Heather engages in repetitive behaviors that appear atypical. Her report of insistence on particular routines, sameness, or ritualized behaviors was significant. She reported that she had a Barbie doll collection that must stay in the box in their original clothing and would become upset if anyone altered that. She stated that she now organizes things based on color and size. She stated that her husband never puts his clothes away, which makes her upset, but reported that for compromise, he now has a clean laundry basket for clean clothes, so they are not on the floor. That system did not last long. Anyway, she reported that she eats trail mix for breakfast every day, and she needs trail mix and coffee daily, and will pack it on vacation and keep extras in her office. Yeah, I actually have trail mix here at work. I have trail mix at home. I used to carry on-the-go trail mix with me, but coffee is a concern every time I've ever stayed at a hotel, any kind of vacation scenario. I need to know, is there a coffee maker in the room? Does it have the stuff? If not, I'm going to bring my own stuff, and I'm going to bring my own coffee maker, because I will literally risk my life to drive somewhere and get coffee in a place that I don't know where I am, just because I cannot start my day without coffee and trail mix. As a child, she had a special plate and ate the same unfrosted strawberry Pop-Tarts for breakfast. She stated that her life is structured because she does not like to be rushed. That is my biggest nervous system trigger, and I'm going to actually make a video about that on a separate occasion. Being rushed is one of the worst feelings for me. She doesn't like to be rushed, and she doesn't like to stop anywhere on the way home. She will not stop anywhere on the way home, period. Especially in the winter, if it's dark. Oh no. Nope. Not happening. Not doing it. She showers a minimum of twice a day. She has reported that she will try her best to stick to routine, but if it's altered, it is upsetting. She stated that if her routine is thrown off, particularly when others visit, it is overwhelming, and she will want to isolate herself. Her brother's report was consistent, that he reported that Heather is often rigid and inflexible with her routine. When asked about interests, Heather said that her interests are more intense than others seem to be. She reported that she loves books and psychology, self-help. As a teenager, she was very much into fantasy books and spent a lot of time reading. She is also interested in religious studies, tarot, and astrology. She is. And she reported spending a lot of time engaged in reading and will often forget to eat and feel stuck. She stated that she once forgot to pick her child up because she was painting all day, and reading can sometimes prohibit her from doing other things. Yes, my child was in kindergarten. I was painting a bathroom, and when I start a project, it's going to get finished that day, or I don't start it. And I completely lost track of time and had to get a call from the school to come pick my child up. That is one of my most guilty moments. There are many raising children, but that's something that has stuck with me a long time. Her brother's report was consistent. He believes that Heather has difficulties with getting her mind off of something once she starts thinking about it. Yes, perseveration, rumination, whatever you want to call it. I am guilty of it constantly. Sensory responses were described as a problem for Heather. She stated that she's overly sensitive to noise, like motorcycles and loud cars. She reported that she can hear things people do not normally hear, like electricity. She stated she's sometimes confused by pains that may be hunger, but not always, and that is very true. And I think that's part of the reason why I gained weight, because when I started feeling bad and feeling dizzy all the time and nauseous and all of these sensations that I normally experienced as I'm way past I need to eat phase feeling, I would constantly be like, okay, maybe I just need to eat a little something. Maybe I just need to eat a little something, because that was what I equated that feeling with, but it was not the same feeling. And I don't always necessarily know how to distinguish what my body is asking for. She reported that she always tries to go to the restroom before she leaves a place. Always. She reported significant sensitivities to clothing and inability to wear things on her neck, which she needs to wear certain materials that are not heavy and feel soft and loose. She reported having heat intolerance and stated that it would also make her feel dizzy. It absolutely does. She reported that she keeps the lights off and turns her lamp on while in the office due to difficulties with bright lights. She reported that she wears sunglasses outside or else her eyes will feel pain and that hinders her concentration. Reported being overly sensitive to smell and is bothered by things like Bath and Body Works, and she uses Eucerin and scent-free body. I do use scent-free just about everything. She reported being unable to wear perfume. Her brother's report was consistent that he also recognized sensory processing difficulties. Other diagnostic requirements. To qualify for an autism spectrum diagnosis based on the DSM-5 criteria, the signs must be present in early life and cause functional impact. Heather's parents and grandparents have passed away and therefore could not provide history. However, Heather provided several examples of social difficulties, poor emotional regulation, sensory concerns, and rigidity as present during her early years. She reported her grandmother often corrected her difficulties with eye contact as a child. She would often cry before class until she was removed from the gifted program because she felt overwhelmed. She reported receiving speech therapy as a child. I did. And reported that she was left-handed but forced to be right-handed, which also is a video for another day, left-handedness and neurodivergence, because that is a whole thing. She stated that she still has motor skill challenges and still struggles with poor proprioception. I do. I'm very clumsy, and I do have a lot of motor skill challenges. I'm heavy-handed is how it was explained to me as a child, that I have Hulk strength sometimes and I don't realize it. In terms of functional impact, based on reports from Heather's brother, there are mild concerns about Heather's adaptive function in the domains of practical, social, and conceptual composites. Further, Heather reported that the autism signs discussed in this report can cause significant distress and greatly impact her ability to form interpersonal relationships. Because of the tendency for some autistic adults to camouflage or mask traits of neurodivergence, Heather was interviewed about the extent to which she has tried to hide or cover up her autistic traits. She reported that she often rehearses and prepares for conversations. Based on the findings of this evaluation, Heather does meet the diagnostic criteria for autism spectrum disorder. Clinical diagnosis is F8.4.0 autism spectrum disorder requiring support level 1. At the end, it does say, and I did like this little tiny paragraph at the bottom. Finally, it's worth noting Heather's many strengths. She appears to have found some healthy interests that she is passionate about. Her interests appear to bring her understanding and clarity. She is also resourceful and has made several accommodations for herself to make her environment more comfortable. And she has. And I'm grateful for the things that I put into place over the course of my life when I realized the things that I needed. The recommendations post-diagnosis were for continued therapy. It says that I have made many accommodations for myself at work. However, if she changes positions in the future, she may require accommodation at work to support her specific needs. Her sensory sensitivities may become a problem in a different work environment. For this reason, Heather should be allowed to regulate the lighting, noise control in private office. Light dimmers or access to lamps are ideal. Having the ability to close the door to outside noise or work in a remote or hybrid schedule would be ideal. It really would be. Heather may benefit from occupational therapy to assess and treat her sensory sensitivities. And beyond that, there's some links to a Discord server and some other resources and things of that nature. But that was a very expensive 5 pieces of paper here that in total cost about $4,500. And as I stated in another video, my insurance was pre-approved to cover this. They did run everything through the insurance first, but then 6 months after the actual diagnosis and the claim was submitted, they came back and said that the provider was out of network and deemed none of it to be covered. So that bill now belongs to me in full. So that's the actual results from the diagnostic process. Prior to the actual appointments, I was a wreck. I mean, I knew they were coming. They were scheduled for as soon as I could get in, and as close to back as possible, but it was still so nerve-wracking. Like I said, I had studied it, I'd gathered all the information, I put it all together, I highlighted and put it in concise little categories, and I was just so ready for this thing to happen. And I tried to prepare for it the best I could, but there was really no way that I could be totally prepared. I actually was not, and think that was reflected in the report when she said that I was very nervous, and I expressed that it wasn't going the way that I thought it was going to, which it didn't. But in that respect, most things don't go the way that I expect them to. I think we all have certain expectations of how, I don't know, a doctor's appointment or an interview or anything like that will work out, and very rarely do they work out the way that we expect them. So prepping for the process was nerve-wracking. Going through the process was nerve-wracking because after the first appointment, I mean, the imposter syndrome just set in so hard, and I was like, wow, maybe I shouldn't have prepared like this, and I shouldn't have brought information in with me, but it's what I would have done for any doctor's appointment if I had what I considered to be symptoms of a condition that I was going to be assessed for that condition. I would bring in a list of those symptoms, so that the doctor could see, hey, I'm meeting this criteria. Maybe we should discuss this being a diagnosis. So it's something literally I would have done for any appointment. I actually have a medical binder that I have done that in while I was seeking diagnosis for some of the autoimmune system or symptoms and things that I was suffering from. So experienced a lot of imposter syndrome during the assessment process. Like, why am I even doing this? Is it necessary? Do you have to know? Who cares? What difference is it going to make? Things like that. And then in the last assessment appointment, we finished all of the assessing, and she made the comment that I've mentioned in the previous videos that it would be the easiest diagnosis that she's written up and provided in 15 years. And again, I wasn't sure if that was because I provided all of the information or because I'm just so damn autistic. I don't know, but it's still, I'm choosing to take that as, you did good. You brought me all the info I needed, and it made my job easier. So I appreciated that, being a possibility, and her telling me before the final appointment, which was a whole nother week away, that the diagnosis was there, and that I just said, I know you can't give me a diagnosis until you've written everything up and you've assessed everything. I said, but are you seeing what I'm seeing? And she said, absolutely. Absolutely. Our appointment will be to provide you with an official diagnosis. So there was some relief after that, and then came the actual diagnosis appointment, which it was maybe 15 minutes of telling me that this report would be en route, that I would be officially diagnosed, and that would afford me the ability to make concessions for myself at work if I needed to, or to seek occupational therapy, things of that nature to assist after my diagnosis. Post-diagnosis was another story. I guess it was like a grieving process, and I've heard a lot of people say that, and I didn't quite understand what they meant, because I'm like, well, I'm not really grieving the past me. She's still there, and I'm not really grieving the experiences that people couldn't understand and didn't identify the autism, because there's no way they would have. I mean, I was a child in the late 70s and early 80s, and unless you had some sort of, intellectual disability or something that was incredibly prohibitive as far as your development and functioning, the likelihood that you would get diagnosed with autism, especially being a very precocious, child, was very rare. So I don't hold that against anybody, but I did go through kind of a process of being angry, and I'm still a little angry because there's just nothing there for us. There's nothing post-diagnosis to really help us learn more about ourselves or grow after that knowledge has been handed to you. It's just like, oh, here's your autism. Bye now. We're done. And that's it. And I made a video on TikTok about it a while ago that it's a lot like, you go to the doctor and what if they gave you a diagnosis of diabetes and they're like, okay, well, there's all kind of literature on it, so you just go figure that out and best of luck to you, and sent you out the door. They would never do that, but with an adult autism diagnosis, it really is kind of left to you to just figure it out. I mean, there's just not a lot of support, and that's why I think I decided to start creating videos like this and to put information about myself out there, because I know that when I was going through this process, when I was making the decision to get an assessment, that I did listen to real stories from other people, from people my age, from women, and I was able to see, oh, well, these things that are in the books about autism are really more geared toward children and towards little boys in particular, because that's what most of the research was done on. But a lot of these things that these women or older people are talking about resonated with me very deeply, the experiences that they had in childhood. And I, from that, was able to kind of put together ideas that I was autistic. Of course, my grandson receiving his diagnosis 3 years ago was what started the journey for me. I also worked with autistic adults, and that kind of concreted that, and I do have a video about that as well. I'll link that in the comments. I also brought pictures to my autism assessment. I don't know if you were supposed to, but again, I'm over prepared for everything. So here's some pictures of me from childhood that I will share with you. This is little me waving something in front of her face, as she did quite often. My grandson does that too, where he just kind of likes to watch his hands. And as I mentioned in another video, I will kind of relax my focus so that things are blurry and it is kind of a visual stim. This is little me with headphones on and teenage me with headphones on. We always had headphones on as long as headphones existed, because I didn't like to be exposed to sounds I could not control. And I constantly wear headphones now today as well. An example of lining up my toys. These were my favorites. They slept with me every night in a specific order. Yes, the Care Bears. And yes, I still have Love-A-Lot. 30 years plus, 40 years later, I still have that. She was very special. And the face. I have a picture I may try to insert here, but it was a picture taken while I was playing with one of my grandkids recently. And I was having so much fun playing with my granddaughter, and I didn't realize that I had total resting bitch face going on. I looked pissed off in this picture, and I was having so much fun. I don't realize that I'm making the face, but this is also the face. This is teenage me. I'm caught off guard. I didn't fix my face, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be making my face do right now. This is a picture of me with my father, also kind of doing the same thing. I'm supposed to be focusing and taking a picture, and I'm off just kind of gazing out into La La Land. So those were just some pictures that I thought were good examples of me in childhood. Since, again, I didn't really have anybody that could testify to that portion of my life, other than my grandmother posthumously through some letters that she had written. So I came prepared. I got a diagnosis, and now here we are. If you ask me now if I thought it was worth it, even knowing that my insurance wouldn't cover the cost, I would still probably say yes. It did change my life. It answered a lot of questions for me. and put a lot of pieces together for me, and kind of helped me be a little kinder to myself and realize that the years I spent pushing myself to be different and be more and be better, and all of the self-help crap that I have absorbed over the years, that I was never a failure and I wasn't broken and that there's nothing wrong with me. I just process information differently. And sometimes I need a little more time for things. And sometimes I need to cut myself some slack and realize when I am being pressured beyond my window of tolerance, when I am being exposed to sensory stimuli that are harmful to me, that will cause me physical pain. And it's really allowed me to kind of take the steps I need to restructure my life to be more functional and fulfilling for me. I do hate that I'm almost 50 before I came across this information, before I knew for certain that this is who I am. But I don't know that having the info would have made life any easier if I'd have known 20, 30 years ago, because the information wasn't there 20 or 30 years ago. We weren't sharing our stories like this. There weren't books written by autistic doctors and autistic therapists. There weren't neurodivergent affirming care paradigms. So, unfortunately, I feel like I learned right when it was best for me to learn. And now the rest of my life can be the best of my life. And I know more what my needs are and how to accommodate those. And I hope that through sharing this diagnostic process and experience with you, that it may help you get in touch with maybe some of your own needs and things that you didn't realize that maybe are your own autistic traits. So I want to thank you very much for listening, for joining me for this series. I will link the prior two parts to this series in this video. You can check those out below. Please leave me a comment, like, subscribe. Don't forget to click the little bell so you can get notifications for all the new videos that come out. And I just appreciate you being here with me on this journey. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Love you. Bye.